Good night, good night, good night. And welcome to another edition of The Digital Age with your boy, Keron Rose. It feels like the week is so long to wait between these episodes. Don't you guys think? Like, I miss talking to you guys. But when the Thursdays hit, there's just so much energy in the room. There's so much energy in the chat. There's so much energy, happening in the episode that, it makes it all worthwhile. So how you guys doing? Let me know if you are in the chat. Let me know if you are in the chat. Let me know where you are from. Last few episodes, we've had people from all over. We've had people from Jamaica, St. Lucia, Barbados, Grenada, the UK. We've had Canada in the building. We've had the US in the building. Let me know where you guys are from, where you guys are tuning in from tonight. Let me know in the comments. Drop your flags. Let me know. We're ready. Are you guys ready? So let's take a look to see who we got in the chat today. First up is Lorraine Hodges Ramjet. Hi, Lorraine. How you doing tonight? Then we got Dwayne. Then we got Jason Marcano. What's going on, brother? Then we got Gerard Rodriguez. How are you doing tonight? Let me know that you guys are here, right? I want to give you guys all a big shout out and thank you for tuning in. Matthew, how are you doing? Wow, you're out in the Bay. I love it. You see, we got people tuning in from all over the place, right? Caribbean Power Lunch is in the building. Wonderful. Denise, how are you doing tonight? Listen, let me know in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. Are you guys in the Caribbean? Are you guys in the States? Are you in the US? Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. You see, tonight we have another piece of the pie. If you guys have noticed, every episode of The Digital Age has been something to give you guys a piece of the puzzle to thrive in the digital age. COVID or not, every episode is chocked full of lessons that we need now more than ever to take our businesses online and to the next level. All right. So it's really amazing to have all of you guys tuning in. It's amazing to see all of you guys so interested in all of these different topics. And tonight we have a real goodie. As a matter of fact, with everything happening in the world right now, this episode is extremely timely because if you're in the Caribbean and if you're in the States, if you're in Canada, you guys know that COVID hasn't gone anywhere. As a matter of fact, there's many places that COVID was gone. We here in Trinidad and Tobago, it was gone for a little bit. And now it is back, unfortunately. However, this is the opportunity for us to really start rebuilding our businesses and our brands. I think many people, after the first wave, I think many people started to get comfortable again and figuring, okay, well, you know what? It's only a matter of time before things get back to normal. And boom, we're back up to active cases. So what does that mean for us? That means that large gatherings ain't happening. It ain't happening anytime soon. So virtual events is going to be here to stay. And even whenever our vaccine releases, events are going to start to move into a hybrid model where you're going to have offline and meshing with the online. So it is extremely important for us to understand the world of virtual events. Now, I wouldn't just do this on my own, right? In order to really have a full discussion on virtual events, I had to rub a magic lamp and I had to wake up. I had to wake up the Event Genie. I had to wake up one of the most respected people and names in the Caribbean event industry. Now I want you guys to give a warm welcome to Miss Tisha Jack of TCJ Events. Tisha!
Keron!
How are you doing tonight, Tisha?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. It is great to see you virtually again. you know, Listen, this has been a hot topic, and I could
Yeah.
imagine COVID has presented some new challenges and new opportunities for you. How's everything been
That's
since the start of everything?
interesting. I think that's the word that sums everything up. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it. It's been a roller coaster ride.
Right,
It's been a roller coaster ride.
right,
When everything happened, of course, events was not, if not the first, the second thing to get shut down.
right.
So
Correct.
you're in the middle of planning all these fabulous weddings, and I had like two or three conferences. I was excited for 2020. I'm like, yes, yes,
Right.
yes. And then COVID, and you're like, no, no, no.
Yeah. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
So we are going to be diving into, what's changed, how you had
Yeah,
to adapt. We have a lot of things to talk about. But before we get started, we have to drop the digital age intro
drop
and
it,
welcome everybody. All
drop it.
right? Here we go. So Tisha, so before we get started, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be giving everybody a breakdown. So if this is the first time you guys are tuning in, what we like to do is we like to give you a breakdown of exactly how the show is going to work, some of the topics we're going to be talking about. We set up a timer so you know how much time is allotted to the
Good.
discussion so you guys know exactly what you guys are getting into. So, what are we going to be diving into tonight? Tonight, we're going to spend the first couple of minutes talking to the event genie herself. We're going to talk about, how she got into events. We're going to talk about the transition she's need to make and some of the things that she has seen in the industry. Then we're going to do a deep dive into the world of virtual events. When COVID happened, me and Tisha were back and forth talking about a wide variety of things because her whole entire industry has changed, and the things that I was doing, just went out the window, and I need to figure out, well, what do I do from here? So we're gonna dive into that. We're gonna dive into two sides of the virtual event world, and then, as you guys know, we save the questions for last so that way we can dive right into it with you guys. All right. So let us get the timer on the clock. Let us get that tuned in. And let us get started. Clock has been cued and the timer is running. Jared, what is going on tonight, bro?
Hey,
So,
Jared.
Jared is in the building. All right. So, Tisha,
hmm
first things first, let us know how you got started in the events industry.
This is always a question. I have to go back, but let me see. So I think indirectly, and I think if you talk to a lot of people, I've been involved in it for in and out unofficially, helping around with the family events and those little things. And when you think, oh, I'm so great, and
Right.
then um, I was in the process. I had just finished my bachelor's degree in hotel management, and I was actually working at tourism development at Hilton, and I got the opportunity to work at TDC as an event coordinator. So I'm
Right.
like, this sounds nice and fun. Let's go.
Right.
So I did that. It was on a short contract, and then it piqued my curiosity to see another side of it. So I went deep dive. Like my boss on the first day said, I'm throwing you in on the deep end. You're gonna learn to swim from here. So,
Yeah.
by my nature, I'm not gonna fail person, so we had to figure it out, right? So
Right.
after 4 months of doing it, I said I actually really like this.
Right.
So I went online and I googled if there were masters in event management, because of course I'm like, people actually study this. Like, I don't even know.
Right.
So there was one. I applied to one university, on the basis that I didn't have to write that long, boring essay about yourself. And no, I didn't have to do that. So I just completed the one form and I submitted it. I got accepted and I told my parents, and they're like, oh, okay. So,
This is a thing.
so this is a thing. And you're going to go, okay, fine. So I did my master's. So I actually have a master's events
Wow.
now. And I came back home and I was fortunate to get a job as event coordinator at a particular telecoms. I'll rename or nameless for now in case we have to say anything later.
Yeah, no worries. No worries, no worries. Not worries at all. So
Yeah, so
what? Go ahead, go ahead.
I stayed there for 5 years as a event coordinator in a very dynamic marketing department until I said, yep, time to make some changes, need to balance life, being not as stressed out. And TCJ Events was born in January 2016, and it's been
Wow,
no turning back since.
wow. And it's so crazy that you're so behind the scenes that like I know you as an expert for events, and I never knew how popular you were because you're so behind the scenes until I put your name
I
out,
didn't know how
and I
popular
was
I
getting
was.
messages like, "Wait, Tisha's coming to Digital Age," and I'm like, "Yeah, you know Tisha, but who don't know Tisha?" I'm like, "Oh, it's like that, okay, okay, all right,
Every time you
cool."
tell me this, I still don't believe you. I always say you're
I'm gonna send the
exaggerating.
screenshots. I'm gonna send the screenshot. I'm gonna send proof. I'm gonna send proof. So now, what I want to know is, so you've been doing this since 2016, right? And TCJ Events was born in 2016.
Right.
When March of 2020 hit, all of a sudden, COVID is in town. We thought COVID couldn't swim. We thought COVID couldn't fly. All of a sudden,
Right.
COVID is here, and it is changing the entire industry. Let us know what happened to all of the in-person events. What happened to the industry? What happened? What did COVID do to your industry?
We literally came to a stop. Like, stand still. Nobody's moving. We don't know what is going on. We don't know when this is going to be over. We don't know how we're going to move forward. And we're literally left figuring out, oh my goodness. Like,
Wow.
there was nobody that knew. We all stopped. So
Right.
in March, I would have had a wedding the first week of April. So you can
Right.
imagine the state of that bride. And
Right.
then planning a conference that was supposed to be in June. So you're like, what's gonna we're like, nah, maybe it'll be all right in June. And I had some other weddings like 2 3 months long. I was like, okay, let's just deal with the April bride and we'll be fine.
Right.
Okay, April comes, May comes. So you're like, okay, this thing is not going, it's not going anywhere. You're looking at what's happening internationally. And what I did coming out of all of this, which is why I'm where I am now, I looked to see what people were doing internationally in the event industry because
Right.
COVID started affecting them since December, January, right? So I'm
Right.
like, what are these people doing?
Right.
And everyone, the story was the same. So this is one time when we could say it didn't matter where in the world you were, everybody's story was the same.
Was affected.
Weddings, corporate, the suppliers, vendors, everybody was singing the same song. To this
Right.
day, it's hashtag save events, it's hashtag save live events because we still, it's still a lot of not moving, really.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
I think one of the funniest things I've seen, and this pretty much kind of sums it up, is there was a clip during our lockdown where I seen somebody. I don't even think they were in Trinidad. I think they might have been in Grenada, and there was a guy standing on his roof, and he's just in a short pants, and you see him just scream out, "I want to wine in somebody's fat!" And we can't get a vet yet.
No, because the entertainment industry is at a standstill. I saw,
Standstill.
they started posting like, what are we doing? We need help. Like, but the thing is, our industry is pretty much what you don't want COVID, you don't want to happen for COVID, which is people gathering. So
Correct.
we're between a rock and a hard place. If you
And
go out there, we could be the reason
I'm
that
sorry.
COVID
I ain't
quickly.
going
Yeah,
to affect. I ain't going to affect in social distancing. I am not doing that.
exactly.
I'm not doing
Not in there.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful, man. That's it's crazy. So what was that aha moment for you to say, you know what? Because many people, as a matter of fact, probably the majority of people have said, COVID is here. Let's just wait, right? Let's just wait and wait and wait. What was the moment that happened for you where you said, I can't wait. I have to do something. And what do we do? What can I do? What was that moment like?
So that happened when I started looking to see what was happening internationally. And that word was coming up, virtual events, virtual events, virtual events, virtual events. And I'm like,
Right.
virtual events. So I'm just, one click leads to a next click leads to a next leads to a next click. And I'm just clicking and reading and clicking and reading. And I said, this is something. No, I genuinely love events. So
Right.
telling me now that there's a whole new world that I can learn, I went down the
Right.
rabbit hole. Like
Right.
literally went down the rabbit hole.
Right.
And there was one ebook that I got my hands on, that I can't even remember the title, but it basically gave you an overview of virtual events in 6 or 7 pages. And I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, with this conference in June, we're doing something like, we're going to figure this out, right?
Right.
So I just started reading and listening to webinars and listening to what people are doing and, best case practices. And because at the end of the day, virtual events is not new. It's been
It's been a
existence.
thing. Yeah,
So
correct.
there have been people doing it for years, and it's just a new era that, of course, is now 1000% growing, and people are learning about it. As I said, I
Right.
did my master's in in events management. Virtual events was no part of the course.
And
So I'm here like, or maybe if it was, it wasn't that major for it to, cement any, like, let me learn this as well as doing face-to-face events, right?
right.
So you
Right.
so you knew about it, you knew that it existed, but the how and what is
Yes.
involved, how you
Yes.
execute, and so I'm reading that people are, so then I'm like, okay, how do you, get things like sponsors, and how do you leverage value for sponsors? And I think we're going to talk about all of that, right?
Yes, we
And
are.
and I'm reading that, you can do exhibits. And I'm like, how do you do an exhibit in a live event? Like, I'm
Right.
being totally transparent here. All of this was new to me back in
Yeah.
March. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, rabbit hole. And I'm just digging and I'm digging and I'm digging and I'm digging. I'm like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then fortunately, these two guys was like, oh, if you think you can do this, let's go. And we were like, oh, so we're doing a virtual conference. Right. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They said, Tish, if you think you can, let's go. And so then the next step was, and I'm giving you the rundown basically, here how you plan a virtual event. The next step was, all right, what platform are we going to use? This is not going to be a Zoom. So,
I'm saving that slogan. I'm saving that slogan.
right?
Continue. I'm saving that slogan for you.
This is not a webinar. What are we going to do? So I went down another rabbit hole.
Right.
Demos upon demos upon demos upon demos until I came across a platform that I was like, whoa, this is going to blow minds. I did a demo with the team and they were like, Tish, if you can pull this off, let's go. And sales as a profession happened. It wasn't without its normal kinks of any event, but it happened. And for somebody that didn't know a thing or didn't know too much about virtual events, I literally broke down in tears when we said that's it and the
Yeah.
you were there, Keron.
I was there. The tears were
You were there.
real. The tears were
Tears were
real. The
Tears
tears
were
were real.
So yeah.
So no, that's dope. So you make mention of learning about virtual events from March, and in our market, virtual events was just never something you seen, right? You never really seen virtual events happening, right? Why do you think virtual events isn't a staple in the Caribbean?
That's a good question because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, why is nobody talking about this?
Right,
Like, why are we not doing it?
right,
Because I started to look to see, if any of the people that I, follow are in the industry with me than I am, but I wasn't seeing anything. And I'm like, you know
right,
what? We're gonna figure this out.
right,
I really can't say. I can't say. I genuinely
right.
cannot say. You
Do you
know,
think? Do you think it's a cultural thing?
it might be adapt. We take a while to adapt, and virtual events is not a walk in the park. I will say it's easier to execute a face-to-face event than a virtual event. I'm not, yeah. Like after having gone through what I've gone through the last couple of months and
Yeah.
doing it from a very basic webinar level to a conference level, whew,
Two totally
I
different things.
totally, it's tired the same way when you're done, but it's a different tired.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a totally different tired. So, I mean, if you're not techie, it can be intimidating. Fortunately for me, I like dabbling in tech a little bit. So I'm not an expert, but I have a pretty good understanding of certain things. So I think
Right.
that too has been a great asset for me. So if you're not
Right.
techie, virtual events can be very intimidating.
But this is why we
Very.
have you. This is why we have you. Listen, you coined when the sales as a profession virtual sales event was, or before it started, I should say, you had the slogan, and I couldn't stop laughing because I was going through my own preparation for the digital age, right? And you probably said a million times, this is not a webinar.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like you needed to like that needed to be your slogan? Why do you feel like you needed to put it in people's minds one time? This is not a webinar.
Because we were sick of webinars by the time the conference was up. I mean, webinar burnout was real. Let's just say Zoom burnout was real. Like articles were coming out. Are you feeling Zoom burn? Like all these different phrases because
Yeah.
every week you're on a Zoom call. Every week you're on a webinar. Every week you're on 5 calls. You're like, oh my goodness.
You're busier now more than ever. All of a sudden, everybody has time to Zoom
Yep.
you. Everybody. And it's
Yep.
back to back meetings.
Yep. Yep.
You know?
So it was important. And this is one thing when you're doing virtual events. So we're just going to drop this as we're talking. You have to differentiate what you're doing from what people are accustomed to because it's a new area. So they're not going to know what to expect. So they're going to think they're going to get a link and they're going to come on and you're going to see.
Yeah.
Whereas when they came, it was a whole like, welcome to a virtual event experience. This is
Yeah.
where you get agenda. This is where you access your sessions. This is where you can check out sponsors. And everybody's like, whoa, this is not a webinar.
This is not a webinar. Yo, I found myself saying the same thing too. Was that when I was planning the digital age, and I literally went in a hole for 2 months. March hit, I had signed some deals to be doing my workshops, face-to-face workshops, right? Seminars and actual hands-on workshops. And all of that went out the window. And I was like, okay, well, what do we do from here? And at that point in time, companies were reaching out to me saying, hey, we love the way you break down and engineer conversations. We don't get the level of conversation that you have when we go to these local radio stations, right? You speak our language. We want to have you interview us or showcase our products with you. So I was like, okay, this is sounding like opportunity knocking at the door. So for 2 months, I went underground and I was learning everything about web shows, live streaming, web shows, the technology, the software, everything. And when I finally put it out that, hey, the digital age is coming, I felt myself saying the same thing too. This is not a webinar. This is not a This ain't no webinar. Please don't degrade me and say this is a webinar, because it's not. Because if you guys know, when I have to set up for a webinar, like if I have to do a Zoom, I literally just click on the link, I log into Zoom, and that is it. You do it from your phone, you do it from your, there's nothing to it. However,
yeah, but
go ahead.
Go on. No, I was going to say, the simple differentiation is a webinar is an online seminar. It's a seminar that's happening on the web. It's educational.
We're going to be breaking that down. We're going to be breaking that down. Don't worry. We're going to be breaking that down. We're going to be going to a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and that's first thing that we're going to be differentiating,
Right.
But yeah, it was, you really had to, you know what you're putting into it. You're seeing the different elements, and this is not no standard webinar. But in our minds, especially because everybody's doing a webinar and everybody is webinared out, you really had to come out and tell people out the gate, this is not a webinar, and this is what we're trying to do. So, Tisha, what we are going to do now is and the thing is with technical stuff, my timer wasn't actually working. For some reason, it decided it was not going to start. But on my end, on my second display, it's working perfectly fine. But in the stream, it wasn't. So you see, things can happen, folks. All right?
Yep.
So our 15-minute segment of Getting to Know the Genie is up. What we are going to do is we're going to take a quick break, thank our sponsors, and then we're going to come right back. And we have a lot to talk about with virtual events, from getting started, talking about the different types of events, monetization, how to get sponsorship, you name it, we're talking about it. So let us thank the sponsors real quick, and we will be right back. Tisha, you stay right there. Keep it locked, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Big shout outs to Buzz Media, Eastern, and Flow. And we will be right back after this sponsored break.
Stay connected and entertained with broadband bundles designed for you. With Flow starter and advanced plans, you can enjoy faster speeds to stream more of what you love. Get free access to the best shows, series, and movies with HBO Go, and connectivity on the go with free Flow Wi-Fi. Packages start from as low as $295 and no contract required. Visit discoverflow.co to sign up today. Flow, keeping you connected.
Sharing your goals, helping you find your place in the world. Eastern gratitude, God's holding your hand, leading the way, here for your needs, making sure that you succeed. Eastern's lending a hand, Eastern together, we're leading the way. Eastern Credit Union.
All right. So we are back from that quick commercial break, folks. Right? Like I said, this is not a webinar. In webinars, there is no commercial breaks. So now we're going to set up my next timer, and I promise you it is going to work, because it will have to work. Let's see. We're queuing that bad boy up. Let's get the timer on the clock. You guys are seeing it. I'm seeing it. Let's start the timer. And you see, all of a sudden, timer is working. You see why, technical things can be a pain. And you see why Tisha said in person is sometimes easier to deal with, because you don't have little annoyances like that. So Tisha, all right, let's get down into, breaking down and giving everybody a solid foundation about virtual events, right? So you ready?
Ready.
All right. The first thing we need to talk about is, let us dive into the different types of virtual or online events. Let's break that down.
Okay.
What do we have?
All right. So we have social gatherings or networking events. So that can just be, all right, before we even go there, let's just, for a definition's sake, just put it out there that for our conversation, we're going to have virtual event defined as any event that's happening online, right? When you talk to the really experienced virtual event managers, they kind of don't like the term virtual events, just like how I feel about, when we interchange coordinator and planner. I have a peeve about it, but I understand it's just common use.
Right.
But on online events, it's the more generic term that is actually used, right? Virtual
Right.
events, you start to talk about augmented reality and 3D stuff, and yeah, I'll
Right.
probably take a little while before I get there again, because that's a
Right.
whole new world that you have to learn, right?
Right.
So for online events are network, that could be, you and some friends just online doing, probably on a Zoom where everybody's cameras on, and you're
Right.
just chilling, right?
Right.
You have social media streams, which we
Right.
would have seen a whole lot of when COVID started, right?
Right.
A
True.
whole lot. So
Everybody's
some
IG
of them did
living.
them well,
Everybody's IG living. Everybody turned hosts.
some of them did them well. Everybody's live on Facebook, everybody's just live, right? So
Yeah.
social media streams are actually a thing. Then
Right.
you have your trade shows and exhibitors, right? So, I mean, huge plugs to TIC. I was waiting to see what they were going to do, and they've gone virtual. So I'm
Right.
excited to see how they actually execute that exhibition and that trade show.
Right.
Then you have your B2B meetings, so your conferences, your seminars, all those things that you would have under your business, right?
Right.
And then of course, the educational sessions, aka our webinars, right?
Good. Good.
aka what everybody knows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw somebody in the comments say that he has a webinar coming up. Don't feel bad. Webinars have their place, yeah. We
Of
just need
course.
to
Of course.
differentiate. We just need to differentiate. When we go into it more, you'll see why we keep saying this is not a webinar. So yeah.
Correct. Correct. So, what are I guess what is the most sophisticated, just so people can get a grasp as what kind of
Right.
goes into these events. Like, what is the most sophisticated of the virtual events?
I will say whatever. So the thing is, when you're doing a virtual event, you typically try to mirror what you're doing with your face-to-face event. So
Right.
I will say the most sophisticated one will be something that's close to what you would have done in a face-to-face setup. I've been on webinars where people are talking about they had virtual galas, and they're talking about they had people at tables and live entertainment, and I'm like, this
Wow.
is happening virtual. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, right. So there's a lot. So you can turn a gala, which is you get dressed up, you go, you eat really great food, you have live entertainment,
Right.
and they turn that into a virtual event.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So, if we are getting into, okay, so again, everybody's here, everybody tuning in has a vested interest in some form of virtual event, whether it is a standard webinar all the way up to,
Right.
some people are thinking, yo, I'm trying to bring Michael Jackson back from the dead to dance on my table, right? Going into augmented reality and
Entertainment
virtual.
one, Ted. Entertainment
Yeah,
one. That one I didn't
yeah.
mention, but entertainment is huge, right? Yes.
Correct. It's huge. So,
Yeah.
what are some of the pieces that go into the event? Like, let's break down. We were talking last night about kind of the structure of event and starting with,
Right.
what do we want to get out of the event? So, let's talk about,
Right.
what are the
Yeah.
pieces that go into planning out a virtual event?
Right. So with any event, face-to-face, online, whatever form, you have to have some kind of strategy, right? And the first step in your strategy is, why are we doing this event? What is the goal? What is the objective? Like, what do you expect to get out of this? So you're having a webinar. Why are you having a webinar?
Right.
Is it that you're trying to build leads for your business? Is it that you're trying to just share information? Is it that you're just trying to build your name as an authority in your field? What
Right.
is your goal coming out of it?
So people come to you with
first to begin,
no objective?
Yeah.
Wow. We just say, hey, Tisha, I'm trying to get paid. So
I wanna-
link up the online event.
Yeah. No, I actually had a consult with someone and he said, hey, I want to do a virtual conference. I said, why? and he had to post.
Good.
So
So okay, so let's break it down. So we know that we have to start with, what are we trying to get out of it? So what are some of the other important pieces that go into planning a virtual event? Because sales as a profession didn't look easy. It didn't look easy.
the next thing is you have to know who your audience is. Who do you want to attend this event? Because at the end of the day, all events are not for everybody, right?
Right.
Who do you want to attract? If you know your objective is to build leads for your business, then you want to attract, your audience should be people that can convert into customers and not just
Right.
some random person that, oh, by the way, right? So
Right.
yes, you will have the randoms, but at the end of the day, you have to understand who is your audience. Who are these people that you are planning to host at this event?
Right. No, that it only makes sense. But it's amazing that
Yeah.
if you don't know that, like there are people that come to you that don't know that, like they don't have a clue as to who they want to serve. They just want to have an event.
I wouldn't say that they don't know, but after conversation, because the other thing in us being event managers is that we have to help or we guide our customers in, developing that.
Right.
So we ask the right questions to help them come up with the answers, because at the end of the day, they may not know. So
Right.
when I'm done talking to you, you're going to stop and actually think about it and be like, okay, yes, this is what I want to do.
Right.
This is
Now-
who I want. This is what I want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we know what we want. We know who the audience is. What is like a key next step
Right.
for planning this event out?
How are you going to measure if this is successful or not? Is it going to be based on how many attendees? Is it going to be based on your profit margin, if profit is one of your goals?
Right.
Is it going to be based on how many people convert into customers, or how many follow-ups you're going to have? So you have to establish how are you going to measure your success, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of work going into the event. So you want to make sure that you are going to get what you want out of it.
Right.
So the next thing is decide how if this is successful or not. How are you going to evaluate your event at the end of it all?
Gotcha. So now, when we are trying to plan this event out, should we be thinking about, doing this ourselves and, purchasing equipment, or should we be thinking about outsourcing it? Like, what is the thought process between figuring out, which way to go?
So this DIY thing, right?
Talk about it.
Some things, so all right, so depending on the scale of your event, you might very well be able to handle it on your own, right? But when you start to talk about, all the different parts, and when we go deeper, you understand that at the end of the day, you might realize that, I cannot be production, marketing, accounting, MC, host, registration, event engagement. Like, you can't be a one-man show hitting all of these things.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to decide if you have all these hands or if you really need to bring in support, and then where are the areas that you need to bring in this support.
Right. So what are some of the key roles because I guess that would be different. The roles of people that you would need in a physical event would be different than a online event. So what are some of the key roles of that you're going to be looking at for an online event?
So the main thing will be developing your content, which will more than likely come out of you. Because you, as the person hosting the event, you will know what you want to communicate. You will know, what information you want to share, right? Then you will probably want to bring in or to have somebody help you with marketing and advertising if it's not your strong point, right? Let's just put all that under your digital team. if you
Right.
have to produce social media content, if you have to produce videos, if part of your event requires you to have pre-recorded videos, then somebody has to produce these videos. So
Right.
we start talking about your digital team. Um,
Right.
if you are going to have a lot of attendees, you may want to have somebody that actually is helping you with engagement. So it's a whole engagement team. Like they are the people responsible for being in your chats and just checking and making sure that you have no comments, because again, you cannot be, if you choose to be your moderator, and that's another person, but you can't be managing things and then in the chats checking to see what is happening. Like no way, right?
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
then your speaker management delegate, like who's going to be checking in with your speakers, who's doing the dry run with your speakers, who's going to make sure that your speakers have the information that they need, that you'll test to make sure they have good lighting, that they have good internet. Right now I
Right.
don't know if we're buffering, right? So
Right. Correct.
all these different things, right?
Right.
And then, of course, very important, you have to have a moderator and a host. Somebody has to
Right.
carry the event from top to bottom.
Right.
So the same way you have it for a face-to-face event, it's even more critical that you have a moderator or a host in case you have to have, announcements or anything, just somebody to carry your event, not just from session to session, but if you just have to manage information from your event to your attendees. So that's just a snapshot. Ooh,
Wow.
and last but not least, you have your AV and your production team. If you're doing
Right.
streaming, all your cameras and your sound and your lights and who's going to be testing all these different things.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a
in a
lot.
nutshell.
And and I guess you say all of that, right? And I think it's a perfect time to dive into, I think we've had so many people that want to transition from the in-person events, they want to go to virtual events,
Right.
and then they come to you, they talk to you, and they say, "Hey, we have this concept. We want to do. We were gonna do an in-person big gala, 1,000 people. We can't do it, so we want to do it in person. We want to do a virtual event." They talk to you. You break everything down. You give them the price, and they look at it and they say, "Way boy, I thought virtual events were cheap. I thought they were cheaper. Why isn't this cheaper? No, we got to talk about it. Why aren't virtual events cheaper? We want to know."
So they're not necessarily cheaper. Let's just go there, right? Because again, depending on the type of online event you're doing, of course, doing a webinar is going to be cheaper than doing a conference, right?
Right.
It's going to be cheaper than doing a gala or a whole entertainment production where you have stage and all these different things, right?
Right.
But it's not cheaper. So yes, you wouldn't have transport costs and if accommodation, if you had people traveling, you wouldn't have decor, you wouldn't have food. But then, whereas you might have been spending 10% of your budget on videography,
Right.
you probably now have to spend 40% of your budget on AV production,
Wow.
because we're not just putting a laptop and talking, right? We're doing cameras to get high resolution, right? We're
Correct.
going to be cutting to ads. We have overlays. We have, right, Keron? Right? We
Correct.
push a button and things happen, right?
Correct. Talk to him.
So those things are not cheap, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, you will have, you still have to pay your speakers, you still have to pay your support team, you still have to pay your host or your moderator. So
Right.
don't necessarily assume that because you don't have some elements, you won't have more. What will happen is that you probably have to spend more. You probably have to do more marketing and advertising, trying to convince people what is this virtual thing that you're talking
And why
about.
to spend their
So
money on
your
it.
advertising and marketing, right? So that budget might be more than if you were doing a face-to-face event. So yeah.
Right. Right. No, that it needed to be broken down, because like people have come to me and they're like, what is the cost to do even what you do for a web show? What are the costs of the equipment?
Right.
What are the costs of the subscriptions you pay? And when I sat down and tallied up my subscriptions, like I pay over $300 US a month, just to do this.
So for me, and then even though you don't have a physical, well, you may or may not have a physical venue, the platform that you choose to host the event on is now your venue. So the
Correct.
event platform is going to come at a cost. And then
Correct.
most times these costs are tiered based on how many
The
attendees. So
attendees.
you find that if you have a 100-person event versus a 5,500-person event, the cost of your platform is going to be different.
Right. Right.
So you still have a venue to pay for, you still have support staff to pay for, you still have marketing advertising to pay for, you still have speakers to pay for, you still have whatever. If you're doing gifts, because people do digital swag, they're mailing out gifts to people, so depending on the nature of your event, you're still going to have costs. So you still have to build a budget the same way that you build a budget for your face-to-face event.
So you hear that, folks? Just because it's digital doesn't mean that it's free. So, Tisha, hold on for a second. Everybody in the chat, again, if we're going good, if Tisha's going good, if you're getting some gems, drop some fire in the chats. Give us some energy, because this is how virtual events work. It's a two-way thing. We give you, you give us. Let us know if we're going good. Give us some fireworks in the comments. Let us know if we're going good, all right? Please, we need some fire. So, Tisha, now, one of the most important things that I think people struggle with, because I get asked this question a lot, is let us talk about the one thing that everybody is trying to hunt for right now. Everybody feels like they're broke. Everybody feels like COVID has taxed their pockets. Everybody wants to know, well, if I'm going to do a digital event, how on earth do we make money from a digital event? Let us dive into that, because now, if everybody was, doing some vacuuming and doing dishes and listening to us, everybody drying their hands right now, everybody come back and say, yeah, boy, hold on, you're talking monetization? Let me get serious. Monetization. So step one. So let's dive into monetization and how can we get paid with virtual events. Let's dive into that. First,
listen, how do
go
you
ahead.
get paid? How do you get paid? How do you get paid for a face-to-face event? You charge a ticket price, right? So if you know that you're doing all of this and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna charge a fee for it, even if it's a minimal amount, I'm gonna charge. So let's just say you use your webinar, right, as your lead generator, right? You're doing a free one. You're like, guys, this is what I'm going to talk about. Boom, boom, boom. It's your lead generation. And then at the end of it, you drop the bigger event. Yeah? And you charge them for it. That's the first step, right? So you can generate revenue from ticket sales. The other way is via sponsorship, right? Because as we said, hosting this event ain't free. So you're gonna have costs to cover. So the same so the same way that you approach sponsors for a face-to-face event, you can approach sponsors for a virtual event. What you need to understand though is what is the value that you're going to be giving to these sponsors? What are you selling to these sponsors? What are these sponsors going to pay? What are they going to get, in return for their investment? So, and whereas you have go ahead. So whereas you have the normal, your logo on social media, your logo on the website, you have to dig a little deeper now to see where are there opportunities within your virtual space, within your virtual event that you can offer for your sponsors to get mileage. So depending on your platform, you have, you might have an area to have like banners, and you have a rotating carousel. You can have them sponsor sessions. So when persons log into the session, they see sponsored by. And then the opening, while you're waiting, you're always waiting for people to log in. Joys of virtual, you're waiting for them to come into the room. You can have, a 15, 20-second video playing from your sponsor. That's
Right.
mileage, right? Um, you can create gamification is huge, and that's just a fancy word of saying activities and little things for them to do so that you create engagement. So having
Right.
your sponsors, having someone sponsor one of these activities to get your attendees engaged during the event, because that's a huge thing that we need to talk about. How do
Right.
you keep people engaged during a virtual event? That is another area that you can have for your sponsors. So that's just a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sponsorship, getting sponsorship for your event. Um, I think one of the struggles that people have is, I know for me, when I was putting together my proposals for my sponsors and letting them know, where we could put your brand within the entire scope of this event, I had to look at what assets do I even have? What real estate do I have that I could offer to people, right? So one of the key ones was I have my website. I can offer space on the website, and
Right.
I can now create a link that people can click on and go back to the sponsors' platforms. I have my email list. My email list, anytime it's digital age related, is branded in one of our created banners with the sponsor's name. So that's website, email list, the social media posts. Again, if you're going to promote your stuff, you can brand there. But
Right.
knowing
Right.
what your assets are, so what can you give? What can you give a sponsor if you don't have a website, email list? Like what are some things outside of just on the stream itself that you can give as
Right.
give up for mileage for your sponsors if you don't have your own platforms?
Right. So that mileage will come mainly if you don't have all those things. At the end of the day, you're going to have a registration page, right? Because people have to register. The first step to come into the virtual event,
Correct.
right? So, however your registration system is happening, that can be an area that you can get your sponsors involved once you have them on board, from the time that you're going out, that you start advertising and registration can happen,
Right.
right? But the real meat of the thing for sponsors happens during the event. And of course, data. The fact that you're going virtual, you have access to a whole lot of analytics that are going to be harder to pull if you were doing a face-to-face event, right? So let's go from the actual event itself. So from the time your attendees coming, when they are coming to the event, more than likely they would have received an email prior to, let's say, 24 to 48 to 72, depending on what you decide, hours
Right.
ahead, letting them know this is the rundown, this is the agenda, this is how you log in, this is how you access, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That is an area where you can drop your sponsors, right?
Right.
Once they come into the event platform, because we're talking all this, Keron, on the assumption or on the basis that you are actually using an event platform, not a Zoom, but an event platform that will facilitate you being able to do all this. So what the event platform is, it's basically a wrapper around what your regular streaming is. So you can
Right.
have an event platform, but your streaming, how we're talking now, is done via Skype or Facebook or Zoom or
Right.
Cisco, all these different streaming facilities, right?
Right.
So I'm hoping that we are getting that you are now, what the virtual event really is wrapping this regular streaming experience with so much more. So
Right.
when it comes to your sponsors on these event platforms, you actually have like sponsor areas where your sponsors can set up the same way they
Right.
would have had a booth for a face-to-face event, right? So
Right.
this is where they display their products and their services. You can click links that will take you to their website. They might have a call to action, gold, right?
Right.
Because the data with this in the back end is they can know how many people looked at their stuff, how many clicks they got, that
And they would
is
have never have gotten that
that is
in person.
major
Yeah.
information. Yeah. right?
Right.
And then, as I said before, within the session, if you decide to tag your sessions to sponsors, um, they get that visibility while the session is going on. If you choose to have them, support you on attendee and engagement, because the other thing with virtual events and what separates it from being a webinar is the level of engagement that happens throughout the event. The engagement
Ah,
between attendees, the engagement between attendee and speaker, the engagement between attendee and sponsors, attendee and exhibitors. Like
yes.
when you're doing a webinar, it's just the person talking and you can chat. And we're not talking polls here and chat. We're
Yeah.
talking being able to, we're talking being able to actively engage, have one-on-ones the same way that you would have had with a face-to-face event. So it's
Right.
that level of engagement that really differentiates, or which is what defines your virtual event. So this is where your
Breakdown. Go
sponsors
ahead. Go
can
ahead.
play a major role. Yeah.
Break down some of the engagements that, because you use a particular platform for your virtual events. Break
Yeah.
down some of the
Yeah.
opportunity for engagement, that platform that you
Right.
use, and feel free to let us know what the
Right.
platform is if you want to. But break down
Wait.
how some of the break down how we can do some of the engagement, just so people can get an idea
Yeah.
of how different it is
Yeah.
from a Zoom
Right.
webinar type of
Right.
situation.
Right. Yeah. So from the time attendees log on, right, they are able to see everyone else who is in attendance, right? And from there, they are able to click to request a meeting with them, a one-on-one, or just start a private chat,
Wow.
right? From there, they are able to go to the speakers area, sorry, and see who all the speakers are, read their bios, read their profiles. If they want to have a chat with them, there will be, call to action buttons where they can start a conversation with the speaker right there and there within the platform, right?
Right.
And going further, there are contests, that's where you can have the fun. Because at the end of the day, events are supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah,
It's really an
yeah,
experience.
yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, right? and and everybody loves to win free stuff, right? So
Yeah.
this is another area where your sponsors can actually plug their services or their products. So you can have contests and giveaways where you're encouraging attendees to, I don't know, post your setup where you're watching the conference from. Post what
Right.
you're having for lunch. When we did the conference, they were joking around, what's for lunch? And everybody was posting pictures of their food when we broke lunch,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Because there is an event feed where attendees can have their own party happening. They're chatting away, moving on, and you have, yeah, that's what they'll do if they were in a face-to-face event, right?
Right.
Once they're within the sessions, now they can do the regular stuff, the chat while
Right.
it's going on, the polling, the messaging, and that kind of thing. So what really differentiates it from your regular Zoom call or just your off the shelf streaming stuff is all these other things that you're able to do within a virtual event platform. The thing that everybody loves on that particular platform is that networking area. So picture,
Yes.
when you break for lunch and everybody's outside around the cocktail tables and sipping and having conversation, we can actually mimic that in the networking launch feature of the platform. So there are
Right.
tables set up and everyone is clicking. I remember, anyway, every time I show this and everybody's reaction was like, whoa, this is where you have real-time video conversations with fellow attendees, as if you were standing around a table having a drink. Yeah, so drinks not included, but we can facilitate you having a conversation in real time in the most engaging way virtually possible. So yeah.
That was, and what I had liked about that platform, at the Sales as a Profession conference, was that you branded each of the tables,
Yes.
the tables,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you seen that, okay, there was a free spot, so you can literally just go, you could exit out and go into another conversation, and all of a sudden now it's four squares pop up, and all of you guys are having a video chat. Then you can jump in, jump out, and just go into different. It made so like
just how you will, yeah, just how you will do it if you were in a foyer of a hotel after an event. You're buzzing around, moving into different circles, having the conversation. So that is what that is about. That engagement,
Yes.
that attendee engagement is what makes the difference.
And for me, I joke with Jared all the time. Like, I have a problem when I go to an event and people are talking and talking, and I can't get away. I have not mastered the art of getting away from people. So Jared always give me tips and be like, this is things you can say to get away from people. When that Sales as a Profession
Virtually,
conference happened,
click a button.
yeah, what? All right, bye. And I'm out. So it helped me tremendously. It helped me tremendously. The next part I want to touch on is we're starting to see a lot of events, and I know you guys were doing this at the last event too. You guys were doing a mix of pre-recorded videos and live videos. So what is the rationale between having this mix of pre-recorded videos and actually having people live?
Right. So there are three main reasons why you will want to mix it up. The first one is time management, right?
Right.
Because you're in a virtual space and you may not have physical control over your speakers. Yeah. So
Right.
let's just say you have someone coming in Jamaica and somebody coming in. It's going to be a little harder to give cues to be like, hey, wrap it up. You're doing over time. So it's a little,
Just press a button.
it's a little harder to press the button, right? It's a little harder to manage. So when you have a good amount of presentations or speakers to have, it's advisable to have some of them pre-recorded. The
Right.
other thing is you want to be able to give people the option of, so all right, so on that same example, so if you have your stuff pre-recorded, you actually have a backup plan. So let's
Right.
just say, you're live and this particular speaker live and there's some tech difficulty. You can always, the other awesome thing about virtual is that you can change up your program real easy and
Right.
you can still have flow, right?
Right.
So if there are some issue and you just need to be like, you know what, load this video instead. This is where your MC and your moderator comes in, that they can seamlessly get this done. You run the
Right.
pre-recorded video while trying to fix what's happening with this live situation, right? And then the other thing is you don't want to have your entire event at the mercy of the internet, right? The no control over with these virtual events is internet. And I have a disclaimer in my contract. I am not in the business of providing internet. Yeah? So I'm not liable. If on this one fateful day the internet decides that I'm not going to be awesome, right? And even in talking to you, I'm seeing that I'm getting some buffer because I have no control over the internet.
Yeah.
Right? So when you have your pre-recorded stuff, you have a little more ammunition to be able to, your plan Bs and your Cs and yeah, but the main thing is really time management and you want to break up, the last thing is you want to break up the monotony. When you have this screen as the only
Yes.
thing happening, and it's person after person after person, God forbid they're not very engaging and dynamic and that's the other thing. You have to be very selective when you're picking people to present at your virtual event because not everybody translates well on camera, right?
That's
So
a
if
fact.
you really want this particular speaker because he has really good information, but he's really boring, you can do the most dynamic pre-recorded video. You get the content and it doesn't bore your attendees. So it's a mixture. It breaks the monotony. It helps you to create balance. And people need to have different things happening to keep them engaged, to keep
Correct.
them from walking away. So yeah.
Give them the example. Give them the example of who would be somebody that you would want to do a pre-recorded video for versus live. Give me that example because we talked about it yesterday.
Yeah, now I have to try to remember what I told you. But I will say it's really going to be based on a personality thing, right?
Okay.
If I know you are, high energy and you're going to come with so much life and it's going to be bursting through the screen, I will want you live, right? because
Right.
your personality is going to be engaging,
Right.
right? But if you tend to, you're more soft spoken and you're monotone, or you might be shy, because not everybody's comfortable in front of the camera,
Right.
then we might decide to do a pre-recorded video where it's more of an interview style. So you feel the speaker feels more comfortable,
Right.
or you might just do one where it's questions popping up and the answer, depending on the content and the nature of your
Right.
event. So I will say me, Tisha Jack of TCJ Events, will say
Plug yourself, girl.
I will say pick it based on the personality of your speaker.
Give me the example about the chef.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the see, good one. Yeah. So again, if you know that this speaker again is the same thing. If he's going to be very dynamic, if he can come with this presentation that is, if you want your chef to do a live cook, you don't want to risk that live. Next thing something happens and it's a whole fiasco, right?
Right.
So, but depending on your level of danger involved,
Right.
you might want to pre-record that so you have control over the final content that comes across to your attendees. So besides the speaker being dynamic, I will say where there's a lot of moving parts. So what has to happen? The
Right.
logistics might just speak to, let's do this pre-recorded.
Pre-recorded.
And that if we have to move in a kitchen and a this and a that and it might get complicated. Yeah,
Wonderful.
so depending on the nature of the presentation and the nature of the presenter.
No, that's great. But that's a perfect segue into the importance of getting it right live versus getting it right in person. So quickly touch on those, because it's a part that people don't think about. The difference between getting it right live and getting it right in person. Touch on that for us.
Yeah. The thing is, the virtual space tends to be a little more unforgiving than
Right.
live. That's been my experience. Like, people all of a sudden have no patience for things to go wrong. So the minute things go wrong, they click a button, right?
Because it's that easy.
Yeah, right? Or they start blowing you up about, what's going on? Why is this like, okay, let's just express. Because we could have been live and the mic cuts out, or we could have been live and the screen is not moving.
Right.
But somehow it's easier to wing things in a face-to-face space than a virtual, because again, all we have is the screen, right? So
Right.
they're not seeing in the back end that we are already scrambling trying to figure it out. Whereas
Right.
if you were in a face-to-face event, they will see us in the shadows working. So they will tell us, oh, they're working to figure it out. They'll get it
Right.
done.
Right.
But you don't have that comfort in a virtual space. So, you really have to, that what's coming through the screen, guys, this is it. This is it.
You really have to make sure that you test, and test again to get it right.
Test, practice, test, practice. Yeah.
Wow. No, I agree. And you know what? Like, when very first episode of Digital Age, the people close to me knew that the day of, I don't really get nervous when I do things because I kind of just stay in my lane. So whatever you see me do publicly, know that I'm passionate and I can't wait to do it, right? But
Right.
you see, when Digital Age, the day of the very first episode, I was like, oh God. I was sitting here at home and I was like, I literally took the entire day testing, going over everything, because I'm like, yo, I know something's gonna mess up. I know something is gonna mess up. But what is it? What is it going to
Yeah.
be?
But
What?
I will tell you this: it is always one of three things. Internet
us know.
connection is number one. I just have to speak to it. Yeah, internet connection is one. Your sound coming through is the other one,
Yes.
and then your video, because again, that's all you have, right?
Right.
So of between your video and your audio, the one you really need to make sure it's good is your audio. Because if the screen starts to go blurry and you can still hear what is happening, people will, with
Right.
audio, they can step away and still not lose anything, right?
Right.
So you have to, I will say, put emphasis on your audio. You and I spoke about the importance of visuals, right? But
Yes.
but I will say, if you really have to pick, if you have to sacrifice something between sound and audio, give audio the push because people can listen. They can listen. And
That's
they
no,
hear me clear now.
that's gold. That is gold. That is
Yeah.
gold. What I want everybody to do, let me know that you guys are still here. The next segment coming up is going to be the Q&A. So start dropping your questions in from now. I have one more thing to ask. I have one more question to ask Tisha before we wrap up this segment. But start to drop your questions in from now so we could go right to the live audience and take your questions and get them answered for you guys. So Tisha, before we wrap up the segment, I want to get into your recap. What are some of the key takeaways? And I know you're like, yo, I'm writing this down because we need to hit this. What are some of the key takeaways for people to get started when they're thinking, you know what, man, COVID really ain't going nowhere. I got to do something. What are some of the key takeaways to get started on the events?
Why are you hosting the event? So just get a pen and just start jotting it down. Be clear on why are you hosting this event. What set your goal and your objective. I can't even reiterate this enough because this is going to be your guiding light. This is going to be how you make decisions for every piece of the puzzle as you go along. When you find yourself like, okay, I can't decide between this and this, the answer to that is which one of them will help me achieve my objective. Which one of them will lead me closer to my goal. So you really need to understand why you're hosting this event. What are your goals and objectives? What do you want to get out of the event, right? The other thing is be very clear on the audience that you want to attract, because this audience will also be who your sponsors will be interested in. When you're approaching sponsors, they're going to ask you, who are you looking at? Who's your target, right? So you have to understand who you're speaking to, and then this is also going to be an asset for you when you're approaching your sponsors, because we didn't touch on it, but when you want your sponsors to be in alignment. This is not just random, give me your money. You want to approach people that have some kind of alignment. You want to approach people that they want to talk to the same audience that you are speaking to, so that they will have a active vested interest in what is happening. So that's why when you are, I'll talk about that. So the next thing is how you are measuring the success of the event, right? How are you going to determine if this made sense? Is it just going to be based on your profit? Is it going to be based on the amount of attendees that you have? Is it going to be based on the leads that you generate from the business, right? So we always say set smart and measurable goals, right? So when you establish your goals and objectives, make them smart and let that tie back into how you are measuring. Because at the end of the event, you are going to do an analysis. And again, depending on the platform that you're using, it's actually going to push out this information for you. So you will know how many attendees you have, who attended which session, how many sessions were there, who clicked on sponsors. So my next step into that is get input from your stakeholders. And by your stakeholders, I mean, if you're a company, get input from your marketing department, from your sales department, from whoever has an interest in it. And then get input from your external stakeholders. Don't just take the sponsors' money and they don't hear from you until the event. Let them feel part of the process, understand what they want to get out of the event, so that when the event is over, that X sponsor would like to know this particular piece of information. So you provide them to that as soon as possible. This is how you build relationships and trust, because again, if you're doing this as a repeat event, you're going to want to reapproach their sponsor. So you want to make sure that they not only get the value, but you delivered on what you would have promised in the beginning. Yeah, so once you get that input from your stakeholders, that helps you to now build out the content for your event. You don't want to, you can even go as far as getting input from your desired audience. So you're crafting your agenda or your sessions, and you might just throw out a survey, guys, who you want to what topic you want to get covered, and it might be that the one that you thought might have been more popular is
Right.
actually least popular. So you
Right.
now know that maybe I need to make this my keynote because everybody wants to hear this particular person, right? So don't be afraid to get input from, not just your internal stakeholders, but your external ones throughout the planning process.
Right.
You might want to do a bit of competitive analysis. I mean, the world of virtual events is not very competitive yet, but we're going to get there soon
We'll
enough.
get there.
And you
Yeah.
will want to see what similar events are happening, what their price points are, what are they offering, because
Right.
what your attendees are going to do is measure up your event against theirs. So you don't
Correct.
want to wait to push that out, and then you're like, oh, wait, I'm a whole 100 US more than this particular person, right?
Right.
So you want to do a better competitive analysis. Once you've done all of that, you'll be able to do pricing because we're not doing these events for free, right? So
Correct.
you can then decide on your pricing, have good information, what your product is, what it's going to cost you, because I should put this before that you will be building out a budget, right?
Right.
And in building out your budget, you have to cover your platform, your streaming, your AV team, your marketing and advertising, your support team. If I need Keron to come and do these fancy videos for me, that's video production, right? If I have to bring in marketing, if I have to get additional staff, if I want people to be in my chats because I can do all these things. So after you've built out the main content, then you're going to start to see where you need support, and you might just need to have a support team. Yeah.
Right.
So once you've identified all these cost factors and you build out your budget, then you will see, okay, I need to charge X to be able to make a profit, because
Correct.
I know I'm getting X from sponsorship, but you also don't want to be fully reliant on sponsorship, because I
That's a
always say
fact.
this, you have to be able to cover. If you don't get sponsors, is your event going to be cancelled? That's something that I always ask, right?
That's a very
So
important question.
yeah, can you fund the event yourself? So after you build it and see your cost, you're like, oh, wait, do I need to raise more money myself to be able to start this thing? Or
Right.
am I super confident that I'll get sponsors? So
Right.
it's a whole lot.
No, that's good. And you know what? To simplify that process, this is when you go and hire the event genie, Tisha Jack. No, Tisha, that is a beautiful recap. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna go to our sponsors, and what I need everybody to do, let me know that you guys are here. But I want you guys to start dropping your questions. I see questions coming in. We're gonna get to it in the next segment.
Right.
Drop your questions in the comments now so we can get to them. Tisha, hold on. We're going to take that quick break. We'll be right back. You guys drop your questions in, and we'll see you guys in a minute.
Stay connected and entertained with broadband bundles designed for you. With Flow starter and advanced plans, you can enjoy faster speeds to stream more of what you love. Get free access to the best shows, series, and movies with HBO Go, and connectivity on the go with free Flow Wi-Fi. Packages start from as low as $295 and no contract required. Visit discoverflow.co to sign up today. Flow, keeping you connected.
Sharing your goals, helping you find your place in the world. Eastern gratitude, holding your hand, leading the way, here for your needs, making sure that you succeed. Eastern's lending a hand, Eastern together, we're leading the way. Eastern Credit Union, leading the way.
All right. So, Tisha, now is the time
Yes, everyone.
where we are in the home stretch. We bring it on home, and we get the Q&A started. All right. So, let us start the timer. And the clock is running. You see the clock working all of a
Time
sudden
management.
perfectly.
Good
You know,
job.
time correct.
Good job, Karen. Good job.
All right, so the very first question is brought to us by the good folks over at Buzz Media. And that question is, Tisha, how can we get paid for virtual events?
Okay. So paid will mainly be via you hosting the event, and it will be through your two main sources of revenue are through ticket sales and sponsorship. Let's
Right.
throw this one in, Karen, because we spoke about this last night and you didn't
Mm-hmm.
remind me. The other thing is you can take the content from your virtual event and do on demand after. So
Yes,
now
folks.
now you have passive income set up. So again, proper planning. If you know that you again your goals and objectives, right? So if
Yeah.
you know that one of your goals is to record this thing so that you can package it and sell it because you know your speaker is going to drop some gems. Of course, you're going to have it in their contract, right? That you are allowed to resell the content. So if you plan on selling the content from your event, you, they may cut or whatever. You guys have to negotiate that. But on
Right.
demand, from on demand content from your event is another way that you can generate revenue.
Perfect. And what I will add in is there's our sponsor Buzz actually has Buzz Events, and what Buzz Events is essentially, it's kind of like the Caribbean version of Eventbrite. But one of the key things is
Right,
that it allows for local payment processing. So they are their own
right,
processor, and they can deposit the
right.
funds into your bank account. So you can create your event within Buzz Events, and then you can drop your link to your event. So let me give you an idea of how this can work for those in the audience. You could use Buzz Events, have people pay through Buzz Events, and then after they pay, they get a generated ticket, and then they'll get the link to the event. And you could do something as simple as starting a private Facebook group on
Right.
Facebook. So Buzz Events would be the
Can keep up with
paywall,
you. Right.
would be the
Right.
gatekeeper, and they would only be allowed to subscribe into that Facebook event. You would have to manually accept them, but you know that anybody that requests the link to that group is because they
Would
paid.
have been they paid. Right.
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 So that
Right.
is another thing to kind of keep in mind. So there's a few ways that you can get paid for virtual
So yeah, so
events.
yeah, so I responded to the question from the perspective of the person actually hosting the event, but it's an emerging area. So as you dig into it, you might decide that you can offer a service. Because I can tell you this, I don't do these virtual events by myself. So
Right.
when I go to my clients, part of my and every time I do an event, I tweak my onboarding process in terms of finding out what the client needs. But
Right.
marketing is not my area. I should say it's not. I need to focus on the overall thing. So
Right.
when I go to clients and they're telling me they need marketing, they need PR, they need comms, they need AV, they need all these things,
Yeah.
I then build out the team around that. So
Right.
that's revenue. So when my suppliers, when I call them, they're like, yo, we're going virtual. Yes. They didn't even think about it. Right. So now my sound AV guy was like, oh, okay. So he has to do a whole system for me now just to do a virtual event. So don't just
Love
sit at
it.
home wondering, waiting when it's gonna happen. See how your stuff can translate into virtual and let's get the industry back running again.
Correct. I love it. Question number 2. And this question is brought to us by Eastern Credit Union. And this question is, what are some of the tech needed to start doing a virtual event?
Your first step will be your registration system.
Right?
Because that is a monster by itself
Right?
in terms of making sure that you get it right.
Right?
What is the flow where do they go to register? So do you have a website already? Do you have to build out a whole registration system? Does your event platform that you're going to use have a built-in registration system? So the
Right?
first thing will be to establish your first tech might just be a registration system. Your
Right?
second tech will be your platform, right? Because these things are not just plug and you have to set this up in the back end, like go in and
And
upload
people asking, what are you using, Tisha? What are you using? Or give us, you know what? Give us some examples of virtual event platforms. Right?
yeah,
Not
sure.
yours, but
So
what are some
I'll
examples?
I'll speak to three because of the few demos I have done. So
Yeah.
let me finish answering the question. So there's the platform, and then the other tech thing that you have to do will be your AV, right? Because we're not hooking up laptops. We are streaming. We want high quality stuff. We have to balance sound, and we have to bring in the speaker, and we have to mute this one here, and we have to add
Yeah.
overlay here. So your other tech thing will be your AV and your AV team, really.
What is AVT? Just because there's gonna be some people that are like, what the heck is that?
Sorry, audio visual. So it will be a sound
Wow.
system, and sound meaning how we balance audio, make sure that you are hearing me, I'm hearing you, we're coming live properly, everybody can hear. Because you could be talking to me and you hearing me, but then for some reason we have a drop in the broadcast, like the people listening are not hearing. So it's the
Right.
people to manage that, to manage the quality, and then we're gonna start to talk techie things we didn't want to do, Keron. With the encoding for the team to know that if you start to buffer, that you drop the quality of the video with all these things happen in the back end and you don't even know, right?
Correct.
When you upload to YouTube uploads your stuff in different formats, and
In
depending
different
on what you're
formats.
streaming from, that's the one that's gonna push. So if YouTube detects that you have, high internet and you're on a good device, it's gonna push the higher quality stuff to you. All these
Correct.
things happen on the back end of a virtual event if you have a proper tech system set up and running. So yeah, it's a lot, guys.
It is like I'm gonna do like a special bonus episode or a live stream one of these days and just show you
Yeah,
guys everything on my back end. And you
right.
guys will be amazed. All right, so
Yeah.
those are the questions from the
So
sponsors. Go ahead.
let me answer the question about the three platforms, because I don't want them to say I'm dodging the bullet. So
Oh yes, yeah,
I
yeah. Go
have
ahead.
yeah, I have been on a few demos, and it's a combination of what the platform offers and of course the price, right? So when you're
Right.
doing your research, you want to check what are the features depending on the content of your event and your goals and objectives. You will know what features of the platform are really critical, right?
Right.
So my three so far, and there are a lot, but my three so far are Huvo, that's Hoover, sorry, WHOVA, Ubilo, HUBILO, and I recently got introduced to Accel Events, which is not too bad. So ACCELEVENTS. So I have dabbled in the back end of all three, so I know what they come with. Because I mean, it's good for I have my go-to. I wouldn't say which one, but
Yeah.
but just like how you have venues and you want to have different options, I'm still shopping around and seeing what is out there. But I can tell you this: price is what differentiates a lot of them, and for us in the Caribbean, a lot of them are going to be a little far reaching. So yeah.
You heard it here. All right. So now is the time we're gonna go to the live audience. So keep the questions coming in. So we're going to the live audience. So the first question coming in, I'm gonna read them out for you, Tisha. The first question comes in from Reynardo Hassanali. When
Okay.
setting sponsorship packages, what is the
Okay.
average cost for sponsors for a Trinidad event? He wants to know how much money can we ask? We need money.
The cost of your sponsorship package is going to be dependent on the value that you're offering your sponsors. There's no set figure for that. I wish I could tell you starting at 5,000 TT now. It really depends on the cost of putting on your event. It depends on the value that you're going to be offering. So what I will say is you first have to understand what this thing is costing you, what this event is costing you, and work your way backwards. If you realize by the time you're done that, this is a whole lot of value, I'm going to expose my sponsors to a whole, 5,000 attendees and the speakers and the reach. And if you know you have that level of value, and then you can start ramping up. But you can't be charging them a ton of money and you're giving them peanuts. So
Right.
the cost of your sponsorship package has to be tied back into the value or the perceived value that you're going to be giving your sponsors.
Wonderful. I love it. So we're gonna fly through these questions now.
Yeah.
So next up comes from Jason Marcano. Jason asks, suggested alternative platforms as a replacement for Zoom live events because he's fed up with Zoom. He is fed up of Zoom.
Yeah, now listen, I'm going to defend Zoom a bit, right?
Right.
The reason Zoom is the most popular is because Zoom offers the most flexibility when it comes to just, your basic off the shelf streaming system,
Right.
right? Because
Correct.
that's what it is. It's a streaming system. So yes, coming out of COVID, Google made their Google Meet free. You have GoToMeetings, you have Microsoft Teams,
Webinar
Cisco
Ninja. We have a
Webex,
lot.
Webinar Ninja. There are a lot. ON24 was one of the most popular. They are now like they want you to fill out a whole survey before you can book them to determine if it's making sense for them, right? So you have to do your research. But the reason Zoom is most popular is because it's very accessible and
Yeah.
the free version is there. It gives you a lot as the free version. But I will say, guys, please, if you take nothing else away, if you do use Zoom, please explore the paid version because if you plan
Yeah.
on doing a webinar, Zoom actually has a webinar version. So
Correct.
within the webinar version, you can stop the subscription after. And this setup allows that you alone are on the screen and you don't have the 10 million tiles or how much ever people to be distracting somebody chewing because they didn't mute their mic. Because again, if you're a presenter, you can manage all of this, right?
Correct.
So explore the
Correct.
features of the platforms and see what works best for you. If you know you want to have that chat engagement, do the paid version so you can take everybody's camera off.
Yeah. Zoom paid version also allows for the built-in paywall where you can
Breakout,
integrate paywall
yeah,
as well. We can integrate
right.
PayPal as well.
And it does the breakout room. So if you know you're doing a
Yes.
session or training and you want people to go in small groups, Zoom has breakout rooms. So that you can just automatically push everybody into mini groups, have them do an activity, and then bring everybody back into the main room. So don't knock Zoom, guys. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, let's use it strategically
Yeah. And
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 build
and,
your
and what's
content.
and what's good to know too is
Yeah,
when do you want to use a protected room versus when you want to go public. So
correct.
I could have
Yeah,
gone the route of this show. I could have gone the route to streaming to Zoom, but that would have put
yeah,
everybody into a bubble. And I want this to
yes,
go far and wide. So I'm using
right,
another tool called Restream that takes the
right,
feed from my broadcasting software
right.
and it pushes out to multiple platforms so we can get the
Yeah.
widest reach possible. All right?
Because you knew that your objective was to get wide reach. So you know you can't use a platform that does not give you wide reach. So it goes back to
Exactly.
your goal and your
What are you
objective.
trying to do? Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question comes in from Johan Rodriguez. Can I use virtual events for insurance? P.S. Don't tell the other insurance agents.
What aspect of insurance? I need a little more on that, but I will say a particular insurance company had a whole rally for their insurance agents, right? So yes, you can. The short answer is yes.
Yes,
But
and
again,
yes,
you have to know what is the event, why, what are you doing,
yes,
right? So
yes.
I need a little more information in your hand to be able to answer you properly.
And that company, the name rhymes with Manticore.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So next question comes in from Camilla Evans. She says, "Oh Lord, this is my worst nightmare. What is the backup plan if you, the host event manager, loses connectivity? Is there a failsafe?" Well, boy, I should tell them what my computer just told me.
No, don't. So, so, so in the virtual space, yes, Camilla, plan B, plan C, plan C, plan D, and E, right? If you have 5 internet providers in your country, make sure you have 5 internet connections. If you can have more than one internet connection from one provider, like backup, 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 backup. And in full transparency mode, that is exactly what happened to me with the conference. Our internet dropped, right? And
Right,
we were like, and everybody's panicking, but we had a backup, right? And we had a backup to the backup. So we had a backup plan for the actual running of the event that didn't require as much, so we were able to toggle that down and switch how we were streaming because we were doing a
correct.
broadcast which will pull more bandwidth, right? But we also realized it was the internet and we changed our connection. So backup, backup, backup. That's why
I
you have
love
to
it.
test, practice, practice, practice. yeah.
I
'Cause-
love it. I love it. Next question comes in from Ashton Mills. Ashton says, I have a product. It's chocolates. How can having a virtual event help me promote or add additional revenue from my product? I could think of like
I
a
was,
million ways. There's a lot.
yeah,
There's a
that's
lot
what
you could do. There's a lot you could do.
I was gonna say he can actually. I don't know if he's actually like launched his product already, but he can even consider virtual product launch. Like, okay, so what you have to think about is what do you want to happen? Is it that you want to get your product in people's hands? Is it that you just want to say, hey, my chocolate is here, right?
Right.
So you can go the route of, let's remember, guys, with a virtual event, you still have something happening in a physical space that you're
Right.
pushing out, right?
Right.
You just don't have all your attendees in person, right?
Correct.
So virtual means all attendees are online. When we start talking hybrid, it means some attendees are in person and some attendees are online,
Right.
right? So a virtual event, all it means is that your all your attendees are online. So for chocolates, you can do a whole mini event in person and push this out. You can have, distribute your samples to influencers and then have them come in live and talk about the chocolate. Find people
Right.
who can use your chocolates to do different things. So if it's a chef or, bake, so hey, I baked this cake with this particular chocolate and this person is live and, so yeah, we can go down this road forever. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. There is really a lot. Like I won't even add to it because yeah, they'll just go down the rabbit hole. All right, next question comes in. We're gonna try to fly through this so we can get through them. And I know you got people and little ones to see about. So next question.
She's so true.
Oh, next question is from Dominic Chapman. Dominic asks, are you able to host virtual events for companies anywhere in the world, or do you focus on events for only local companies?
So by essence and the definition of virtual, the answer to that should be I can host for anywhere in the world, right?
Right.
But one of the things with virtual events is that you want to set up a command center. So as I just said, yes, the event is virtual because all of your attendees are online, but there's still a level of physical, setup, a level of physical things happening to make the event happen. So one of the recommendations with a virtual event is that you actually have a command center. So
Right.
this is something that I have been toying with, as like, if I'm approached from somebody outside of Trinidad, how do I do this? Nobody's flying anywhere, right?
Right.
So how do you confidently set up a command center and I am not physically there? My anxiety will be through the roof,
Right.
right? So in a perfect world where I could jump on a plane and then be in the space with you, even though everything is happening virtually, I'll say yes. But for now, it's not something that I will want to play with, um, because I'm not in the room to command or to control or to manage everything. So in the command center, for example, you have your tech guys set up, you have your AV guys, you have your social media team, you have your host. So you don't have to be picking up the phone to try to call somebody because everybody's in the room as far as possible, or as far as physically possible.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. No worries. The next question comes in from Kalisha Mills. Kalisha asks, she says, I just got in, but how can you keep engagement high during an online event? So I know we had touched on
Gamification.
and hire people that are actually
I hire
interesting
people.
with some spunk. Yeah?
No, but seriously, engagement. Yeah, so engagement is not just so wait, let me step back. When I say gamification, I just mean creating activities for persons to take part and actively participate, right? So you might have, as we were explaining earlier, post on the feed what your setup is like. You will have a sponsor might say, hey, show us your cocktail with this particular drink. We can make all these things up, right?
Right.
So one of the platforms that I use, they actually have 3 contests built into the platform. So this is something that we offer sponsors, and it's something that we can actively, engage the audience with. The other thing is, you want to create opportunities for them to is really actively participating. Yeah, so you engagement can also mean, visiting your sponsors, and you might say, hey, um, visit the sponsors area and come in the chat and tell us who is providing X service, and they have to come back to tell you who was the sponsor's name. But you
Right.
want to create things to just get them moving and get them active because, again, the screen is all we have.
Yeah, and the next thing, what I would add too is, and I know me and you, Tisha, talked about this last night, and the importance of it is breaking up the stream. So
Oh yeah,
don't
for
leave
sure,
it as a
for
talking
sure,
head video the entire
for
time.
sure, for
You want to
sure.
be able to have, animations coming across,
Yeah.
overlays. We could switch to
Just take
videos.
breaks. Just take breaks. Like you can't be running live for 3 hours in a virtual, guys. Like people need to stretch because believe it or not, they'll take their breaks with or without you telling them to go on a break. So you
Right,
want to build breaks into your session so people can know, okay, I'll hold on because we're going to a break in 10 minutes or right
right,
after this presentation. And then
correct,
within that break, you can create an activity for
correct,
engagement. You say the other means and just keep the engagement up. Engagement just means active participation.
correct. All right,
Hope that
cool.
helps.
So the last question we will take for the night before we wrap everything up is from Dominique Robinson. And Dominique asks, are you getting any opportunities related to Carnival 2020? Is the season being planned out?
Can I plead the fifth? Um, I do not have my eyes on Carnival. I'm going to be very honest. I typically Carnival is not my season because my niches are corporate and weddings, right? So unless corporate has some Carnival related stuff, I'm not into the parties and the fetes and those kind of events. I
Right.
I pass those to people who have that experience. Yeah. Um. So Carnival 2021, I really don't know. I don't even know what December is going to be looking like. I don't know what November is going
That's a fact. That's a
so
fact.
I'm,
That's a fact.
I'm trying. A regional client wanted me to plan a conference in November, and I'm like, we're going virtual, right? Because I was supposed to be on a plane, but we don't know if this is going to happen, so we're planning for virtual.
Right,
So,
right. No, that was, listen, that's good. What I need you guys to do is we've come to the end of our program. If you enjoyed this session with Tisha, you know what I need? I thrive off of fire. Give me some fire. Give me some 100s. Give me some hands up in the air. Raise the roof like you just don't care. Give it to me. Let me know that you guys are still here in the comments. Let me know if you guys enjoyed tonight's session. Tisha, I told you I had to rub the lamp. I had to bring out the genie. This was a conversation that we had to had, and I just want to thank you for taking the time, for telling hubby, hey, relax. We got some things to talk about tonight. I'm thankful that you took the time to come out and had this discussion on virtual events because you and this niche is not going anywhere anytime soon. And there's a lot that people are going to be confused about. People have a lot of questions. So again, just being able to tune into this episode and just to get a bit of a understanding and foundation. Listen, from on behalf of the digital age audience, I want to thank you very much for
thank you,
coming.
Keron. Thank you for trusting me to bring this information. I told you I was having the heebie-jeebies when you told me, Tisha.
Yes,
But
I know. And you know what? And the funny thing about it is, right, is what people don't know is that when March happened, when March hit, when COVID hit, you and I sat down and we were talking
are you trying
at
to
length. We were talking
right?
at length about, what can we do? What do virtual events look like? What is the software is needed? What is the technology needed? How do we put this together? And you and I were sending each other, hey, this person just did this type of
That
stream.
stream.
Let's go look.
Yeah,
And we would
yeah.
sit there, we would be guessing, wait, what were they
How did they
using?
do that?
How
Right?
did they do that? How did they do that? And we were constantly going back and forth trying to figure this out, And again, that helped me a lot in putting all of this together because you
I
made
was
me
going to
hip.
say, yeah, because that's how you got
Yeah.
your softwares and all those things. So, yeah.
Yeah, you made me hip to a lot of things that I needed to pay attention for, and honestly, the feedback that people have given on the Digital Age show, I wanted to make sure that episode 1 people knew this wasn't a webinar. We had Devon
I
flying.
I am humbled that I've had such an impact in you, Mr. Digital. Like,
Yo,
yeah,
listen, thank you, man. Thank you because iron sharpens iron and again, you need, people really need to understand that you need to have people around you that speak the same language, that have a similar drive or a better drive than you, so that you can bounce ideas off of them and create something. Because listen, I don't know what this show would be like without my conversations with Tisha, without my conversations with Kevin Valley from Caribbean Power Lunch, without my conversations with Terry Carell out of Jamaica.
Yeah.
Everybody has had an impact on how this entire thing came together. So I really, again, I thank you. I thank everybody that has helped me put this thing together, And once again, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to give us your knowledge and drop them gems. Tisha, where can we find you if they want to follow you? Because everybody wants the lamp. Everybody wants the lamp to rub and figure out, how do we get 3 wishes, Event Genie? Where can we find you?
I will go in the order because you shout this from the mountaintop. So I have a website, www.tcjmanagement.com. Once you go there, you can find everything. But I'm also on Instagram at TCJ Events. I'm on Facebook at TCJ Events. I am sometimes on Twitter at TCJ Events. And I am definitely on LinkedIn, Tisha C. Jack. So you can connect with me on any of those platforms. And I will be more than happy to help you figure out this virtual event world.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tisha. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed another wonderful Digital Age episode. Next week is going to be another episode where Buzz Media is hitting the stage with the CEO, Stefan DeRoche. And listen to me, that is going to dive into the world of e-commerce, and they have major announcements, new tools, new platforms for businesses. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, and I am telling you, next week, you don't want to miss it, because if you have been thinking about, maybe I don't want to do a website, this is going to be the next best thing. I have seen this platform. It is a very, very polished platform where you are going to be able to do amazing things. Let me stop talking because I'm gonna say too much, and I need to save the surprises for next week. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Digital Age. Listen, the hearts, the love. Sound the alarm. Thank you guys, and I hope to see you guys next week, 8 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. We're getting into the world of BuzzPay. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys next week.